My son mocked my 911 career into a microphone at my own retirement dinner. I did not argue. I kept one hand on the Navy medal box in my coat pocket. He had no idea whose name was on the old call card. If you have ever had someone make you smaller in front of a room, stay with me. My name is Tabitha Jenkins. I am 69 years old and I live in Dayton, Ohio. For 34 years, I worked as a 911 dispatcher at the City Emergency Communications Center, though that night you would not have known it from the folded program beside my dinner plate. That dinner was supposed to be my retirement dinner. At least that was what Grant had told me 2 months earlier when he called sounding bright and busy. He said the city wanted to honor my service and his company was helping sponsor the evening because emergency response needed to look toward the future. I should have paid more attention to that word. Future. Grant had been using it for years whenever he wanted to move something old out of the way without saying so directly. The first program Wendy showed me still had the right words on it. Tabitha Jenkins Career Recognition. She had held up her phone in my kitchen while I dried a coffee mug with a dish towel, and I remember thinking the lettering looked nice. By the time I walked into Civic Hall, that line had disappeared. Near the bottom of the schedule, in smaller print, were two plain words, Family Remarks. Grant's company logo sat above my name in dark blue letters, neat and expensive looking. The yellow roses near my chair were pretty enough, but they looked like they had been ordered because someone needed something soft beside all the sponsor signs. I kept my coat on and held the metal box in my pocket the way some people hold a key. Before the reception started, Wendy came over and smoothed the back of my chair. She said everyone loved me. Of course they did, but donors responded better to a positive tone. Maybe no heavy call stories tonight, she said. Just a few warm memories. I said I understood. I had said that too many times in my life. I understood when Grant's father left, and I took the night shift because it paid a little more. I understood when I came home at 6:40 in the morning, made eggs, signed school forms, and drove Grant to baseball with dispatch voices still ringing in my ears. I understood when I turned down supervisor training because it would have put me out of town during his scholarship interviews. Some mornings I slept in the recliner with one shoe still on, afraid I would miss the alarm. The kitchen always smelled like coffee grounds and toast left too long. Grant would come in with his backpack and say, "Mom, you look tired," and I would smile because children should not have to know the full price of being raised. For years, I thought he understood at least part of it. He became an impressive man, polished shoes, smooth handshakes, private security technology. In front of people, he sometimes said his mother taught him discipline, and I held on to that sentence longer than I should have. Then he started calling the dispatch center the phone room. At first, I let it pass. People shorten things. I know that. But the way Grant said it had a little edge to it, and I heard that edge every time. At the reception, I stood beside a small table with a lukewarm glass of water while Grant introduced me to a donor from Cincinnati. He rested one hand lightly on my shoulder and said I answered city calls back before everything was digital. The man smiled and said that must have been interesting. Interesting. Wendy gave a little laugh and added that I still thought in paper logs and coffee cups. She said it sweetly enough that anyone nearby would have thought she was being affectionate. I looked down at the program in my hand and pressed my thumb over the place where my career had been edited into remarks. Across the room, Frank Delaney stood near the coffee urn. He had been a fire captain back when my headset cord still tangled under my elbow every shift. His face changed when he heard Wendy. Not much, but enough. Grant did not notice. He was already pointing toward the stage, explaining how his company's routing platform could modernize emergency response. The old dispatchers from my shift sat at the back tables, farthest from the screen. A few minutes before dinner, Grant guided me toward the hallway by my elbow. He kept his smile on until we were near the coat racks. Then his voice dropped, "Mom, the schedule is tight tonight. People came for the future of emergency response, not old stories." I looked at him. Old stories or old people? His jaw moved once, but no answer came. Wendy appeared behind him with a clipboard pressed to her chest. She said they were only trying to help me leave with dignity, without making the night too emotional. I touched the metal box through my coat. "I have handled emotional nights before," I said. Grant blinked like he had not expected me to answer that way. When we went back into the hall, Frank Delaney was waiting near my chair. He glanced at the folded program, then at my coat pocket, as if he could see straight through the wool. His voice was low enough that only I could hear it. "Tabitha, do you still have the Reed call card?" For a second, the noise around us faded into the clatter of forks and low talk. The Reed call card. I had not heard anyone say those words in years. I kept my fingers around the metal box and looked across the room toward Grant. He was laughing with a man from city planning, one hand moving through the air like he was drawing the future above the dinner plates. Wendy stood beside him, checking table numbers and smiling whenever someone important looked her way. I did not answer Frank right away. I excused myself and walked toward the hallway again, this time without waiting for anyone to approve it. The double doors softened the banquet noise behind me. Out there, it was just the buzz of a soda machine, the thin rattle of hangers in a draft, and those pale yellow roses sitting on a side table where someone had moved them while rearranging the head table. I stood beside them with the program folded in my hand. That was when the hurt settled all the way in. Not because Grant had made a bad joke, not because Wendy had softened me into something decorative. It was because my son knew better and chose the smaller story anyway. Earlier that afternoon, I had gone to the communications center to clean out my locker. The room smelled the way it always had: old carpet, burnt coffee, warm electronics, and tired air. I had breathed that air through storms, pileups, house fires, missing children, and Christmas Eve calls from people who had nobody else to call. My locker had always stuck near the bottom. I had to lift the door and pull at the same time. Inside were things I should have cleared out years before: a dented thermos, a cracked headset cushion, a strip of photos from a dispatcher Christmas party, and my old badge clipped to a faded lanyard. At the very back, behind a stack of training manuals, sat the Navy metal box. I had forgotten how small it was. Important things do not always take up much room. Sometimes they sit in the back of a locker for years, waiting for you to stop hiding them from your own life. The hinge made a soft click when I opened it. Inside was the life-saving service medal, a folded commendation letter, and an old dispatch call card from 1998. Case number 98417. My name was typed at the bottom as T. Jenkins. The boy on that call had been 15 or 16. He was trapped after a warehouse fire near the rail line, smoke in his throat, too scared to give me an address because he did not know where he was. I kept him talking. I asked what he could hear, and he told me a train horn, then church bells, then dogs barking close by. Those little sounds were enough to move the fire crew 2 blocks east. I remembered his breathing more than his words. Fast at first, then slower because I counted with him. I told him I was staying right there, that he did not have to fill the dark by himself. Grant was young then. He already hated my night shifts and used to ask if bad people knew where I worked. So when the city gave me the medal, I put it away. I told myself I was protecting him from knowing how close fear could come through a phone line. Standing in that hallway at Civic Hall, I understood I had hidden the wrong thing. The double doors opened, and Frank stepped out. He did not ask if I was all right. People who have stood inside smoke and sirens know better than to ask easy questions in hard moments. "Do you have it with you?" he asked. I opened my coat pocket enough for him to see the edge of the Davy box. Then I pulled out the call card, folded once inside the commendation letter. Frank put on his glasses and his fingers stopped on the case number. His face changed. "Tabitha," he said quietly, "Christian Reed is in that room tonight." I looked through the small window in the door. At the front table sat Councilman Christian Reed, the donor everyone had been circling all evening. Silver hair, navy suit, polite laugh. I had seen him on the news plenty of times, but I had never connected him to any call from my old life. Frank took out his phone. The screen lit the lines in his face as he called Angela Morris, the current fire chief. He did not explain much. Reed case, 1998, T. Jenkins. Need the archive check now. Angela came out less than 10 minutes later, moving fast but not making a scene. She had a tablet in one hand, her brow drawn tight. Frank held the call card beside the screen while she scrolled through the old training archive. There it was. Case number 98417. Dispatcher T. Jenkins. Juvenile located alive. Transcript excerpt used for calm caller protocol. Angela looked from the tablet to me, then toward the banquet room, where Grant still thought the night belonged to him. She closed the tablet cover and said, "We need to change the program tonight." Would you have spoken up right there, or waited until the room had no choice but to listen? Angela did not ask my permission, like she was hoping I would say no. She looked at me once, and I gave the smallest nod I could manage. The banquet room doors opened, and the sound came back all at once. Forks against plates, soft laughter, Grant's voice carrying from the stage with that smooth confidence I used to mistake for strength. He was talking about routing systems when we walked in, private security partnerships, faster response through smarter technology. Words like platform and innovation rolled off him while the old dispatchers sat in the back with programs that barely mentioned them. Wendy saw Angela first. Her smile tightened, but she kept it in place. Grant did not see us until Angela reached the side of the stage. He turned toward me, still holding the microphone. Mom did her part in the oldest, but let's be honest, answering phones is not the same as building systems that save lives. No one laughed that time. Someone near the front set a fork down too hard. After that, even the air conditioner sounded loud. I stood, but I did not speak. Angela stepped to the podium before Grant could move on. Her voice was calm and official. She said there was an omission in the program, and it needed to be corrected before the evening went any further. Grant gave a small laugh into the microphone. "Angela, I think we are running a little tight." She did not look at him. She looked at me. I walked forward and set the navy metal box on the podium. My fingers were steady until I opened it. The metal caught the Civic Hall light, and for a moment it looked brighter than anything on that polished screen behind us. Angela unfolded the old commendation letter. For life-saving service under extreme pressure, she read, awarded to dispatcher Tabitha Jenkins for maintaining caller contact and coordinating emergency response during incident 98-417. Grant shifted behind her. His smile stayed on, but it had gone thin. "Mom has always been modest about those little certificates," he said. Frank Delaney came up from the side aisle with the printed dispatch log in his hand. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady. Angela took the page and read the line that mattered. Case number 98417. Caller identified as juvenile male. Dispatcher T. Jenkins maintained contact until rescue units located subject alive. The room went quiet. Then Christian Reed stood from the front table. I had seen him on television, talking about city budgets and downtown redevelopment, always polished, always certain. That night, he pushed his chair back slowly and held the edge of the table before he spoke. He said he had been 15. He had been coughing so hard he could barely answer. He did not know the address and thought nobody would find him. Then he said he remembered a woman's voice telling him to count with her Listen for sirens and not go quiet. He looked at me then. I never knew your name, he said, but I knew that voice got me home. Nobody moved. Wendy had one hand pressed against her clipboard. Grant stared at Christian Reed, like the room had turned around and left him standing in the wrong place. I stepped toward the microphone. I had spent too many years using only the words required. That night, the required words were simple. You called it answering phones, Grant. That night, a boy answered back. That was all. The rest of the evening did not belong to him anymore. Angela spoke about dispatchers whose names never make the newspaper. Frank stood beside me with his hands clasped in front of him, his eyes wet but his face steady. Christian Reed asked, in front of donors and city staff, that part of the new Grant support dispatcher training under the name Tabitha Jenkins. Grant did not argue. He could not have done it without making himself look smaller than he already felt. The next morning, the city newsletter did not run the story Grant expected. His company was mentioned near the bottom. The headline was about unseen voices in emergency service, and there was a photograph of the metal box open on the podium with my old call card beside it. Wendy sent a text 2 days later. It was careful and polished, full of phrases like difficult evening and never our intention. I read it at my kitchen counter with coffee cooling beside the sink. Then I set the phone down and finished buttering my toast. I did not answer until I was ready. Grant came by 3 weeks later. He brought the corrected program folded inside the city newsletter. The paper had softened at the edges from being handled too much. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had signed his school forms after night shifts and wrapped birthday gifts with dispatch ink still on my hands. He looked tired in a way that did not ask me to fix it. He said he made me small because he wanted to look bigger. That was the first honest sentence he had given me in a long time. I did not rush to forgive him. That would have been another kind of disappearing. I told him the door was not locked, but it was not open the way it used to be. If he wanted to come through it, he would have to know me as more than his mother. He nodded. He cried a little. I let him. A month after that, Angela asked me to help train crisis line volunteers, mostly older people who wanted to be useful but had been told too many times that useful belonged to the young. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. The first morning, I set my old badge beside the metal box on a small training room table. My thermos sat next to it, dented and familiar. A woman about my age picked up the practice headset, looked at the metal, and said she had not known a voice could do that much. I smiled because I knew what to tell her. I told her a voice can keep someone company until help gets there. Then I looked at the metal box and thought, maybe that was enough. Maybe it always had been. So if anyone ever made your work feel small, I hope you remember this. Quiet work is not empty work. Some of the strongest things we do are the things nobody sees until the day they finally have to. And if this story stayed with you, stay with the channel for more stories about dignity, family, and starting over.